You're listening to Puma Podcast.
And so, yeah, we are here in the Philippines right now, trying to figure our life out. And reason why we chose the name Al Bayt, which actually means home in Arabic, is because we're offering them the food that we brought with us from Palestine. This is the food that is being offered there in Gaza, and so we figured we want people to taste that.
When Israel officially declared war on Hamas in response to the October 7 attacks last 2023, they launched a violent campaign that rights experts have called genocidal. Nearly 2 million Palestinians have been displaced by the war. Some of them have been forced to flee Gaza altogether, leaving life as they know it behind. That includes several Filipino-Palestinian families who were evacuated by Philippine authorities last year. In June, one of those families soft launched a small eatery in Imus, Cavite, serving Palestinian staples. We were there on their opening day and watched as they took a significant step towards rebuilding some of what they lost in Gaza. I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka.
My name is Aiman. I'm Palestinian Filipino descent. My mother is Filipina and my dad is Palestinian. I'm 34-year old. I did study civil engineering in Canada, and right now I'm switching into the restaurant business, so kind of on the opposite side. And we have been repatriated from Gaza back in November of 2023 due to the ongoing war and genocide in Gaza.
Up until they were forced to leave, Ayman and his brothers worked for their father's electrical contracting company. They were a family of engineers, installing power lines across the Gaza Strip.
For us, yes, we were comfortable. We've built our life there, and we were able to sustain our life. Now, many people from outside of Gaza would ask me, "What's it like to live there?" Just like the words you've described, it's really the largest open air prison in the world. It does have the highest unemployment rate in the world at almost 80%, and right now it's at 100%. So really, employment-wise, it's not quite the best place to be. For us, we had a business, but somehow we managed to sustain our life with that.
Can you tell me a bit more about what those initial days of the war were like for you?
I'd say the very initial days of the war were actually the hardest that we had to endure because the very first days actually of the war were the most intense that we've experienced in Gaza, as many of the bombardment were actually happening there. So our home was literally like in the center in Gaza, and a lot of the bombardment was nearby us. Everything was about 20 meters, 30 meters away from our homes, and they were so intense that we would hear the bombings every minute or two. And we did so for the those first 5 days, and it intensifies in the evening hours and late night. We did not have electricity at the time. We couldn't leave our homes. We couldn't do any groceries. So we were really left in our homes, and whatever we had is what we consumed.
Then they were ordered by Israel's military to evacuate.
At the beginning, we couldn't believe it. We thought it was some rumors, but it wasn't until we've seen all of the organizations, like the UN and Red Cross and all the other ones. We started seeing their vehicles leaving Gaza. So that's when we realized, like, yeah, this must be serious. And so, yeah, I think we were given, I think, around 12 hours or something. And so we couldn't really gather our belongings. We couldn't get many of our stuff. So we just basically, whatever we could fit in a backpack is what we fit in there. So I just took the important papers and a few belongings and a few clothing, pieces of clothes. that we've had on us, and we left, and we left everything else behind us.
And do you still have family in Palestine?
I do, yeah, I do have my extended family. They live in the West Bank. Like originally, that's where my father is from. And so what happened is when we were in Gaza, the rest of my family they only have Palestinian passports. So that portion of my family is my stepmom, my step sisters that were with us in Gaza. The way we managed to get them out was really with the assistance of the Philippine embassy. You know, they were kind enough to negotiate with the Egyptians in order for them to evacuate them with us, since we held like Filipino citizenships. So you know, they understood like the ongoing situation, and for humanity concerns, they figured, yes, we'll find a way to bring them out. And so the Philippine embassy managed to negotiate with the Egyptians and brought them into Egypt. But unfortunately, like, we
The
demanded
original plan
the
was for them to be
embassy,
repatriated to the
to
Philippines
have
from there,
to issue
but that
visas
didn't
for
pan
them.
out. Instead, while Ayman and his brothers and their Filipino mother were evacuated to the Philippines, the rest of their family was forced to stay in Egypt. And then they were arrested for overstaying. Eventually, they were deported to Malaysia, one of the few countries that accepts Palestinian passports, and returned to the West Bank. And how are they doing currently in the West Bank? Are they comfortable? Are they okay?
No, not really. They're not comfortable and they are not okay. So every day is really the same fate as Gaza that they're facing, because every other day there's some escalations that happened in the West Bank. And so also lack of work because, for example, my sister, her husband works in Israel as a construction worker. So since October 7, he's lost his employment. And so now really they just rely on whatever they can plant in the land like that we have there in the West Bank. This is what they rely on, but there is no actual source of income in there. And there's over 80,000 people in the West Bank that used to work in Israel are now unemployed. Yeah, so the situation is really deteriorating slowly, like in the West Bank. So right now, that's why we're really concerned about their lives. Would love for them to come here to the Philippines and join us. But it's just like this is the part where we really don't know what to do. We need help bringing them here to the Philippines, and so that my entire family is reunited with each other.
Later, Ayman talks about his Filipino roots and what it's been like to rediscover them over the last few months. And how did your mom and dad meet?
So my dad completed his high school back in Palestine, and he wanted to apply to study abroad. And his initial plan was to go to Turkey. And he specifically wanted, I believe, a university called University of the East in Turkey. And it was by mistake, like the agency that he applied with back in the 80s applied to the University of the East here in the Philippines. And then my dad was like, Philippines? Where is that? And so he figured, at the time, that agency told him, yeah, it's a good place, and a lot of people go in there to study. They have good education system, and so eventually he was convinced, and then he reached out to his mom, my grandma, and she was okay with it. And that's when he decided, sure, I'll just fly to the Philippines. And so while he was here in the Philippines and he was studying, that's where he met my mom. So they met and they got married here in the Philippines. And then a few years later, they lived here. That's where my dad decided, we're going to move back home to Palestine. And then we moved back there.
In Gaza, their Filipino mother worked as a chef for high end restaurants. More recently, she worked for a canteen serving United Nations employees and delegates. Today, they use her recipes for albite. Aiman, a longtime foodie and enthusiastic home cook, calls himself her assistant chef. And I wanted to talk about also what your first days in the Philippines were like. You mentioned that you really only had less than 24 hours to pack all your things and leave Gaza, and then you landed in the Philippines. And as you said, you really had no adult memory of being here. So, what was it like to be here all of a sudden and to start life here?
Well, for somebody, for example, like for me, marunong ako mag-Tagalog, so I kind of I don't have much of a big issue in like, adapting here.
Without knowing it, Ayman and his family opened on the same day a fiesta was being celebrated in the small town of Imus. Several statues of Mary paraded through the streets for hours, accompanied by loud horns and drums. The children who were part of the procession flocked to Al Bayt, curious about the new Palestinian eatery serving shawarma, biryani, kebabs, and shish tawok. I watched as Ayman quickly put them at ease, speaking to them in Tagalog, allowing them to taste the food for free, and serving generous portions.
But also, it is a culture shock. It's one thing that I speak a language that my mother taught me at home. It's another thing to actually experience life outside of home and being here. We were promised back when we were in Egypt, we were promised by the embassy that somebody's going to welcome us at the airport and there's going to be somebody taking care of us and figure out, the whole, our livelihood and figuring out, where we'll stay, if we'll have a shelter or not. But, we were really shocked and surprised, like, after we were welcomed there, all of the press was there, they took all the pictures and the news. But within an hour, everybody disappeared, and we were kind of like left alone to face our fate. We didn't know. We just kept waiting there at the airport. We didn't know if somebody's going to show up or not. But luckily, one of my mom's friends, her son happens to be working at the airport, and he knew there was a group of people that just came from Gaza. And just out of curiosity, he just wanted to see if there was anybody that he knew was there. And he just happened to meet us. And we explained the situation to him, like about what happened. And so he called his mom, and then both our moms spoke with each other. And so they offered us their home.
Next, someone who owned a medical clinic housed them in a patient room. Eventually, someone offered their dilapidated home in Imus, Cavite.
The house was abandoned and needed like some work and stuff. So we said, we can do the work, no problem. And so we fixed up the house here, and so that's where we're staying. But again, we're again facing the same fate. We don't know how long we'll be here for. So the person demands the home or something. We don't know. So we're still like in this limbo of really still figuring out our shelter. And so we figured, like this restaurant right now, we figured at least something that we could get the ball rolling. We'll have some sort of an income. This could help us with our livelihood here and gives us time to figure out what our next step will be.
Did the Philippine Embassy ever explain why no one came to help you get settled and adjust like they said they would?
Negative, no, they didn't. Yeah, it was really just about like, here we help you out. We brought you out of the war zone and now you're in the Philippines and figure it out.
I wanted to talk about that opening day. Actually, I was there and I was observing, and I was happy to see that it went well. But I'm curious about your experience of that day. How was it?
We were not really expecting, and I'm sure you've seen the volume of people that have showed up there. We were not expecting that many people to show up and try our food. And to be quite honest, many of those customers that showed up, a lot of them are becoming like our regular customers right now. They're loyal. Yeah, they're very loyal to our food. They enjoy it. They love it. Ton of positive feedback about it. We figured like this is actually much bigger than than what we have planned for. And so that's why we're taking our time with our soft opening, and for us to figure out how we can cater to all of our customers, as we did not expect this much demand from all of them. And as a matter of fact, that's the reason why we are closed today, is because of the volume and the high demand from our customers. We can only prepare so much. We're only so many in here taking care of all of this. And so we took the day off, to figure out our supply. And
So great that after everything that you've been through, you're still willing to do the work of telling people what it's like and highlighting how terrible the genocide has been. But I'm also so curious, what's it like to have to juggle all that, having to start a whole new life here, but also worrying and following what's happening back home and having to talk about it, fairly often, to educate people? Do you stay updated with the news every day, every hour, or do you try to not, follow it too much? Because I'm sure it must be upsetting.
yeah, it hasn't been easy, as somebody who has lost like a lot of friends, over 500 people that I personally know in Gaza. Yeah, and the countless numbers of other people that are still buried under the rubbles, and other peoples that are still living in tents and moving from one place to another, and others that we have lost contact with and don't know anything about their fate. It hasn't been easy, and for us, it's watching the news is has become a habit of us in our daily life here. It does really affect us to consume all of this content and to know everything and all the details about what's happening there. And juggling that alongside, establishing our life here and having to face this difficulty. Despite all of this, we're always thankful and we always say Alhamdulillah, thank God for every situation. It's not really easy on us, physically or mentally, to have to deal with.
When I met Ayman for the first time in June, I was struck by how light he seemed, quick to smile and unwilling to complain. Roasting meat on the side of a nondescript road in a small Cavite town I had never even heard of before. Less than a year ago, he lived a life of relative comfort, working for his family business as an engineer. A brutal occupation and war have torn his family apart, forcing them to leave Gaza's beaches, nearly everything they own, and life as they knew it behind. In Gaza, the war rages on with no real end in sight. A recently published study by The Lancet, a renowned medical journal, found that the death toll since October 7th could be as high as 186,000, or nearly 8% of the Strip's population.
We try our best, to move forward, because eventually, we cannot be stagnant here. We cannot just, sit and wait for things to get better. We're the only ones that are able to change our situation. So, regardless of the events, regardless of what's happening, like we'll do whatever it takes to move forward.
And for the people who care about this cause, who want to do whatever they can to help, what is the best way to support you and other Filipino Palestinians, other Palestinians who are here and even abroad?
I think it really begins with the awareness of what's happening in Gaza ever since the events started in October 7. A lot of posts have been ongoing on social media, and so this has increased awareness amongst people and communicated the reality of the situation in Gaza. So I think what people can do is keep liking, keep sharing, keep commenting, keep telling your friends, your family, and keep educating everyone about what is happening there. As for the families here, everyone that is looking to help us out here, I would say reach out, let us meet you. We'd be more than happy to welcome you in our homes. And then we would be happy to welcome you. We'll get a chance to even meet more Filipinos here, as we are adapting in here. Because we're only a handful of families and we really just know each other. And we obviously don't want to be living foreigners. Like at the end of the day, I'm half Filipino, so I've got half my roots buried here. So we would love to meet more Filipinos here. We'd love all the assistance and anything that could help us, with our daily life. Because a lot of the families here also have a lot of kids. Some of them, are infants. So really, anything that people can provide and help, would be really appreciated.
That was today's episode of Teka Teka. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. If you'd like to check out Aiman and his family's eatery, follow them on social media at AlbaytPH. That's ALBAYTPH. Pidoy Blanco edited this episode. Our executive producer is Jill Caro, and our editor-in-chief is Carl Javier. Thanks for listening.